My best friend's boyfriend starts DMing me on Instagram. He confesses that he had a crush on me when we were in college together, and I told him that I did too. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. From that day on, he would DM me every single day and we would just flirt back and forth. I started feeling really guilty and I told him one day I can't do this anymore. That's when he told me he also felt guilty and that the best thing was for us to stop talking, so we did. I was so sad. A few weeks passed by and my best friend asked me if she could have the apartment all to herself because she's planning a romantic dinner for him. I said yes, but I felt so jealous. I left the apartment because I realized that I was so in love with him. I went to the supermarket and ate a whole pack of Oreo cookies and went to the movies. I get a text message from my best friend asking me to come home immediately. My stomach sank and I thought she had found out. When I get there, she's crying and she says that he broke up with her. I asked if he said why and she said because he was in love with another woman. My stomach sank again. I was there with her the entire night while she cried, knowing her boyfriend left her because of me.
Story of the time I helped my friend propose to his girlfriend in high school. We will name him Steve. So this was the dynamic of our friend group. Me, Steve, his girlfriend, and my best friend at the time. We'll name my best friend at the time Kate. I'm just going to refer to his girlfriend as his girlfriend. Anyway, Steve and his girlfriend were dating for a while. He was a senior and she was a junior. Their relationship was pretty toxic, not gonna lie. They talked about moving in together, they talked about having kids together, so they were pretty serious. Even though they were serious though, their parents wouldn't let them date. So the only time they could see each other was in school. Anyway, he decided he wanted to make a really big poster that said, "Will you marry me?" and hang it on a wall in school. So Steve and my best friend at the time, I forget what I named her, they stayed up really late one night making a poster. I forget why, but I couldn't go for some reason. But I met them at school really early the next day at like 7. Mind you, school started at like 8:30. And we find the perfect spot to hang the poster. All the way in the back of the school by the locker rooms in between the girls' and the boys' bathroom. So his girlfriend comes in, sees the poster, cries, says yes. But they broke up a few weeks later.
My husband and I have 2.5 kids. My oldest is 10 years old, my middle child is 5, and I'm currently 5 months pregnant. My 10-year-old is from a previous relationship, and my 5-year-old is adopted. My sister got pregnant unexpectedly, saw adoption as her only choice, and didn't want the baby to go to strangers, so I stepped up. We did everything right. My sister went to therapy to consult on her choice, and I went with her to make sure she was sure, and we did everything that was recommended for adoptive mothers/birth mothers along the way. It wasn't an immediate adoption. I got guardianship, and we built to an adoption, and my sister was involved in the entire process. And again, never expressed any issues in the time it took to finalize. Just over a month ago, I announced my pregnancy. My 5-year-old knows about the biological relationship between her and my sister. Shortly after telling people about the pregnancy, my sister and I arranged to meet up in person in the park. She then told my 5-year-old to give mommy a hug, and my 5-year-old immediately grabbed me and my sister got shitty about it. I asked her what she was trying to do, and she said that I had a baby on the way and assumed that I was done with the 5-year-old and was going to have a new favorite. I said I don't play favorites and don't know what game.
So this one time I had to stay at my grandma's because my dad was on vacation. And I was having a huge box of clothes come in and I was not about to have these hoes stolen, so I had my friend stop by to put them inside. So I called my friend up and I was like, "Hey, can you tell me when you get to my house and let me know when you put the package in?" She's like, "I got you, shawty." I was like, "Bet, girl." So around 10 minutes later, I got a call from her freaking out. She was like, "Kayla, is there anybody at your house?" I was like, "No, my dad's on vacation and I'm at my grandma's." She said, "No, Kayla, there is somebody at your house right now." So I start freaking out. I'm like, "Girl, what do you mean?" And she said she saw someone walk across this huge window and then my dad's lights turned on. So I start freaking out. I'm like, "What did you see walk across the window? Like, who did it look like?" And she said it was just a black tall figure that walked across that window. And around 5 minutes of being on the phone freaking out, she said my dad's lights turned off again. Eventually, me and my grandma drove by the house to make sure nobody was there. And of course, nobody was in my house. And it only gets worse.
I have a 9-year-old daughter who I named after my late grandmother, Annabelle, and I'm currently pregnant. If I'm having a girl, I want to name her after my other grandmother, Rose. My sister got pregnant about 5 months before me and says she wants to name her baby Rose. I said our kids can share the name, but she says I already have Annabelle and could have named her Annabelle Rose, but passed up on the chance. So now I can't have Rose. I told her I'll look for something else, but reserve the right to use Rose if I want to. Then I fell in love with the name Rosalie. It honors my late grandmother, my boyfriend loves it, and it won't piss off my sister. A couple of weeks later, my sister gives birth and announces her daughter's name is Rosalie. I am beyond upset because now she's trying to snatch both names from me. My mom calls me to say she knew my sister was planning to do this and hopes I'm not upset because this means I can take the original name I wanted, which is Rose. But I told my mom I'm sticking with Rosalie. She said it's impractical because both Rosalies will have the same surname. My sister is a single mom and my boyfriend will be taking my last name. My sister then calls me to say I'm an inconsiderate prick and that I'm being petty. She can name her kid whatever she wants and I can't monopolize the name. I said true, so by that same logic, I can use Rosalie.
Storytime part 2 of why it's better to have one loyal friend instead of a big group of friends. I forgot to mention in part 1 that when I arrived, the men were already there. Mind you, we were in sophomore year, these men looked like they were in college. So I was already a little thrown off, but I trusted it because I was with my friend. When I wake up, these men are like staring at me, but they try to look away really fast, but I could tell that they were staring at me. I start thinking the worst of the worst. I try to think of any possible way that I could get out of there, whether it was physically or mentally. So I pretend to fall asleep just to escape the reality of it. But then one of the men at the bottom of the bed starts rubbing my feet. I immediately kick my leg so I can get his hands off. Now I'm thinking he's gonna be mad and I'm gonna get fucking attacked. So I try to make small talk to loosen the tension. So I look at the guys and I'm like, hey, do you know where the girls went? One of them looks at me and says, oh, they went home. So I'm like, I thought this was Sally's house. And they say nothing. So at this point, I think I'm being set up. I try my best to not make it seem like I'm suspicious of them. I casually act like I need to pee. Walk into the bathroom and I see a window. Automatically something clicks in my mind, get the fuck out of there. Making part 3 right now.
Detail, but guys wanted my mom's underwear, especially after she exercised. Totally disgusting and weird, I know. Things were going way too good. I was making tons of money and I was able to buy myself all the things that I wanted. My mom, of course, started noticing all this new stuff that I had in my room. Well, little did I know, but my mom had installed cameras in her bathroom and in the house. So basically, I was being filmed every second of my day. But of course, I had no idea, so I just kept doing what I was doing. I would wait for my mom to shower, then I would steal her underwear and ship it off to these dudes. I was home alone one day and there's a knock on the door. And when I opened it, it's the police. They had a warrant to search my house. Of course, my mom comes home and she explains to me that she installed cameras in her bathroom and that she caught some dude stealing her underwear. I literally couldn't believe they hadn't figured out it was me. So I totally played it off and acted like I was shocked. Then my mom called me into her bedroom and started showing me all the footage. It was totally obvious it was me. Then I got handcuffs put on me. Then my mom busted out laughing. She said that they wouldn't arrest me, but that I needed to learn my lesson. The cops warned me, saying that if I ever did.
My fiance and I are getting married in a few months, and our wedding is on a Saturday. It's 3 days after his niece's 6th birthday. He has 2 nieces while I have 1. When we booked the date, we were aware that it was close to her birthday, but we figured because it was not on her actual day, it would be fine. His sister has recently asked if we could make our wedding a little bit more special for her daughter. She asked if she could pick out the dresses, for her to wear a tiara while the other 2 have simple headbands, and invite 1 school friend and 30 minutes to an hour of her music playing. She also wanted people to sing happy birthday to her. We said no to this. We want the flower girl dresses to all look the same and to go with the color scheme. Plus, we know that if the other girls see her wear a tiara, then they will also want one. We don't want some kid at our wedding who is not with their own parents. As for the music, it would be annoying, but all guests are welcome to request songs to the DJ. And I told her we can sing happy birthday after we cut our cake and we can bring her out a little cupcake. My sister-in-law is unhappy about this because our wedding means her daughter will not get a birthday party that year. And she thinks waiting until the weekend after is too long and it will upset her daughter. My partner is starting to cave, but I don't want to budge. He feels bad in the situation, but I don't. Am I wrong for not having a birthday party at my wedding?
Have you let anyone borrow your phone before? One woman let her son borrow her phone, but she could have never expected the terrifying thing she saw after she got her phone back. So this woman got her new phone and she put it on the kitchen counter and went to watch some TV. That's when her son came in and asked if he could borrow the phone to play with it. The woman didn't think much of it at first, so she agreed, but she could have never known that this would lead to a terrifying discovery. When it was nighttime, she got ready to tuck her son into bed, so she went upstairs to his room, but he wasn't there. Then she ran over to her room and saw him sleeping on her bed with the new phone in his hand. She felt relieved, so she took her phone back and started looking through it. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary. She saw her background had changed, but it wasn't until she saw the photos that she found the horrifying surprise. There were many new photos on her phone that her son took around the house, the front door, the kitchen, and even photos of her taken from the back when she was watching TV. She started deleting these photos until the last one caught her eye. Instantly, she turned around, terrified. It was a photo of her son sleeping in her bed, but it was taken by someone else, someone standing above him, and on the edge of the photo was half of a stranger's.
This is why you should never play hide and seek. A mom decided to play hide and seek with her 2 kids. The mom began counting, ready or not, here I come. She begins searching the downstairs kitchen because she knows that they hide there every single time. As she's walking to the kitchen, she starts saying, I wonder where they are. She looks under the table and sees they aren't there, which is kind of odd. She knew they were too scared to go into the basement alone, but she decided to check anyway. They weren't there either. She began to panic. The mom then says, Jordan, Casey, come out now, mommy's not playing anymore. There was no answer. Panic really begins to set in. She decides to call 911 and reaches an operator. She tells the operator what's wrong and the operator sends an officer to her house. Once the officer arrives, he says, don't worry, we will find them. As she's sitting in the living room, she hears giggling and laughing and hears a closet door slam upstairs. She sprints upstairs and says, Jordan, Casey, you worried me sick. She opened the closet door and nobody was there. While all of this is going on, she hears the doorbell ring. She runs downstairs and finds the officer holding Jordan and Casey. The officer says they were hiding in the shed out back. Then Jordan looks at mommy and says, "Why were you telling us to stay in the shed?"
Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of 6 friends who went to the beach together, but something strange happened. One of their friends decided to dive into the water, then went missing. But things are not as simple as they seem. All the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So these 6 friends went to the beach and one of them decided it'd be fun to go cliff diving. Let's call him Tom. Tom dove into the water first while all of his other friends watched. Then about half a minute later, when Tom still hadn't come up, his 5 remaining friends followed. But still, even after everyone else came back up and swam to the shore, Tom was still nowhere to be seen. The 5 remaining friends thought the worst must have happened, so they left and tried to move on with their lives, until the 1-year anniversary of Tom's disappearance. They went back to the same beach to commemorate him. That's when Tom was right there, standing by the water. But something wasn't right. In front of him, right at the edge of the water, were 5 crosses. What really happened here? Can you solve this mystery?
I found out my husband was sleeping with my sister part 2. I made multiple profiles on all of these dating apps, and these profiles were from women that are very, very close to me, my best friends and my sisters. Because listen, it's always someone close to you. At least that's why I like to think. Setting up all those accounts took too long, but it was definitely worth it. I only found him on one dating app, and that was on Bumble, and he matched with my sister. I decided to start the conversation with, "Hey Ben, that's so awkward, we matched." It took him about 2 days to answer me back because he was off on those 2 days. Apparently he deletes the app on his days off, and then when he gets back to work, he installs them again. His first message to my sister was, "Hey, I miss you so much, I can't believe we stopped talking." I decided to go with it and I said, "Just talking?" He said, "Of course not, you know what I mean, I miss your body, I miss everything about you." Long story short, I waited for him to get home from work, I showed him the messages, I decided to get a divorce, and I also got everything. Do you guys want to know what she did to her sister? Follow me and comment.
Welcome back to Reddit Stories. About 18 years ago, my wife and I wanted to adopt a child, and we were paired up with an Asian couple. We assured them the child would be loved, which was the truth because we instantly fell in love with our baby boy. After about 8 months, though, we started to feel twinges of guilt because our perfect Chinese son was going to be raised in this whitewashed household by 2 ding-dongs who were unable to provide him with any sort of connection to his cultural heritage or identity. There happened to be a large Chinese population in our city, though, so it seemed like a no-brainer for us to expose him as much as we could. We enrolled him in Mandarin classes, and we even developed a relationship of sort with a Chinese couple who became his adopted auntie and uncle. We even took family trips to China every couple of years. Flash forward to recently, he's now 17 years old and getting ready to go to college, so my wife and I are helping him fill out the financial aid form. Digging through my office for the needed paperwork, I came across his adoption papers, and it was only then that I saw it. Something so obvious, so painfully brick to the face obvious. Something that neither my wife nor I in the stupidity of our youth had registered. The names on the adoption paperwork were Park and Kim. Our son was Korean.
This is why it's better to have one friend that you hang out with regularly instead of having a big group of friends. And trust me, you're going to want to listen to this story time. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I was kind of going through an identity crisis, and low-key still am. I went to a predominantly white school for the majority of my life, so let's just say I was extremely whitewashed. It was one of those times in my life where if a white person said the N-word around me, I would just laugh. Not because I didn't know it was wrong, but because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be like everybody else, and I seeked validation. Sophomore year was really when I started to become who I am today. I wanted to learn way more about my culture and my background. So I started becoming friends with people from other schools that are more diverse. Eventually, I met this group of girls, and I thought these girls were going to be the sweetest girls I would ever meet. Now, this friend group was serving flavor. I'm talking diverse to the T. One night, we decided that we were going to spend the night at one of the girls' houses. Let's call this girl Sally. I kept getting lost on the way to Sally's house, and I thought it was because I didn't know the area that well. Keep in mind, that's what I thought was the reason. I get there and we watch like 4 or 5 movies before I end up falling asleep. And when I wake up, I was in a room full of grown-ass men staring at me.
Now I'm sure many of us have encountered little shits in supermarkets. Kids running around, knocking things over, being rude, but the worst are the biters. Today I was shopping in the grocery store when a biter got me. He broke skin too and I started bleeding. When I saw the blood on his teeth and the grin he had, the gears started turning and I got an idea. Made my eyes go wide and started screaming, shit, fuck, no. My good friend was there too and he instantly picked up on what I was doing. He started shouting, fuck, maybe he didn't get it, shit. By now, the kid is scared shitless and starts crying, and instantly, his mom appears out of nowhere and starts getting pissy at us for yelling at her kid. Here's the kicker. I look her straight in the eye and say, "Ma'am, get your son tested as soon as possible. He just bit me and I'm HIV positive." And now there's silence, not a peep in the entire store. Brat knows he just fucked up big time because his mom isn't defending his ass. He stares at me wide-eyed and I walk away from them to buy my groceries. All while blood is dripping from my calf, making a nice little trail on the floor. Just as we're about to leave, we start to hear the mom sobbing like the little she is.
If someone asks to put makeup on you, don't do what she did. One night, a girl in Japan was walking home at night when she came across an elderly woman. It seemed like the woman was walking around aimlessly. She was wearing an oversized hat and had a cane. While she had wrinkles on her face, she also wore quite a bit of makeup. The young girl didn't think much of it until the old woman came up to her and asked if she wanted to try some of her makeup powder. She said that she loved using it and it would make the young girl so much more beautiful. She didn't want to be rude, so she agreed. What could be the harm? But she could have never imagined the horrifying consequences this could possibly lead to. The moment the white powder was applied to her face, she felt a deep burning sensation. Then she felt the flesh on her face fall off. The old woman was the face powder hag, a creature from Japanese urban legend who tricks young girls into putting on her makeup. When the young girls' faces begin to rot and fall off until there's nothing left but a skull, she will steal their flesh for herself. What she does with it is still a mystery.
Into the bathroom and steal her underwear. Then I would put them in Ziploc bags, and this was the best way to conserve any, and then I would mail it off to dudes. Well, within a month, I was making at least $500. But my mom started freaking out because she couldn't figure out where all her underwear went. She asked me about her underwear, but obviously I played it off like I had no idea what she was talking about. After about 3 months, things were going really well. I was selling my mom's underwear sometimes for $100 a pop. And here's a gross detail, but guys wanted my mom's underwear, especially after she exercised. Totally disgusting and weird, I know. Things were going way too good. I was making tons of money and I was able to buy myself all the things that I wanted. And my mom, of course, started noticing all this new stuff that I had in my room. Well, little did I know, but my mom had installed cameras in her bathroom and in the house. So basically, I was being filmed every second of my day. But of course, I had no idea, so I just kept doing what I was doing. I would wait for my mom to shower, then I would steal her underwear and ship it off to these dudes. I was home alone one day and there's a knock on the door. And when I opened it, it's the police. They had a warrant.
I got married 4 years ago and my husband and his family are many times over millionaires. My family is just middle class. Our wedding cost around $700K paid by him and his parents. My parents gave me a flat fee of $10K for a dress, which they are also giving to my sister too. Sister and her fiance are lower class. She has $170K in student loan while he has $110. They have $18K in medical debt and $35K in credit card debt. Well, last night was my sister's birthday dinner and she announced she was engaged and wanted help paying for her wedding. She gave me a spreadsheet of how much she was going to need for her dream wedding. Anyways, her dream wedding is supposed to cost $100K, and as her only sister, I need to step up and help pay for her wedding since her parents are only giving her $10K for a dress. She said she needs me to give her at least $70K since I'm rich now. When I told her I'm not giving her $70K, she cried and said it wasn't fair how I get whatever I want. When she realized I wasn't going to budge, she broke down about how I'm just using motherhood to be greedy and lazy. I have 2-year-old twins. I eventually told her I wasn't going to be bullied into giving her $70K. She's 15 weeks pregnant, hence why she's in a rush to be married right away. When I tried to leave, she just snapped and
Story time about how I almost got arrested for selling my mom's underwear. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My mom is a total MILF. She used to be in music videos back in the early 2000s. So obviously, I had to find a way to monetize this. When I turned 16, I knew that I wanted to start making my own money. I had heard about people selling pictures of their feet on the internet, so I thought, why don't I try that with my mom? By the way, I am a dude. So I got on Google and started searching how I can sell my mom's pictures, specifically of her feet. So every time my mom would go to get her pedicures done, I would just offer to take pictures of her feet for Instagram. She thought this was really weird, so she would say no. I would try to sneak pictures every now and then, but she would always catch me. So eventually I scrapped that plan and I moved on to her underwear. I found a website that was talking all about how you can sell your own underwear, and obviously since I'm a dude, nobody's gonna want to buy mine. And I know, what I'm about to say is pretty gross, but I started stealing my mom's dirty underwear. So obviously I had to start keeping track of every time my mom showered. I would go into the bathroom and steal her underwear. Then I would put them in.
Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of a missing woman who crossed a bridge one night and was never seen again. But something isn't adding up here. Where is this missing woman and why does she go missing? All the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So this woman left work and went home one night like normal, but she realized that she forgot to get the groceries. Now the grocery store that she wanted to go to was on the other side of a suspension bridge, so she thought that since it was a nice night, she would make the trip. She crossed the bridge and made it to the grocery store by 10 p.m. that night, quickly got her groceries before closing time and went back home. The next day, she saw on the TV that the same suspension bridge she had crossed last night collapsed. Several people died in the wreckage, and they have yet to be identified. The collapse is believed to have happened between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. The woman didn't make it to work that morning, and all of her friends and family members never heard from her again. What really happened to her? Can you solve this mystery?
Story of the time my friend made me lie to my parents. So I was either 15 or 16, and it was one of the first time that I tried. So we did a lot of that, and then we went back to her house. I started to get really paranoid, and it felt like I was floating, and every sound that I heard felt like it was echoing. I ended up getting so scared that I texted my mom and asked her to pick me up and told her what we were doing. My friend ended up seeing my phone and started freaking out, but my parents were always laid back as long as I told them the truth, and I told her that, but she still freaked out. So she told me to call my mom and tell her that we were pulling a prank on her so that I could stay. You could tell my mom thought I was lying because she was like, okay, well, I'm still gonna come pick you up. Mind you, I was supposed to sleep over. But my friend really didn't want me to leave. So she came up with this great plan. She told her little siblings to go up to my parents' car when they got there and pretend to be laughing because they fell for the joke. And my parents are not dumb. And her siblings were not actors. So my parents end up coming like for part 2.
Have you ever seen a painting that looked extremely realistic? Jake was waiting for his mom when he saw a strangely realistic painting, but he made one mistake that would lead to terrifying consequences. During his mom's doctor's appointment, Jake was sitting alone in the hospital waiting room. That's when he saw the painting. It looked so real, almost like a photo. He was promised ice cream if he sat quietly, but he found himself growing more and more curious. He felt like he needed to move closer to the painting, so he got up and walked towards it. The painting was of an old man, but there was something wrong with it. It seemed like the eyes would follow Jake no matter where he'd walk. But soon something even more unbelievable would happen, something no one can explain. The painting, needless to say, made Jake feel creeped out, but he tried not to feel so scared. It was a painting after all. Then Jake leaned in and saw one weird detail. The old man had unusually long fingers and fingernails. A bit later, Jake's mom came out of the doctor's office, but Jake was nowhere to be found. She called him but got no reply. Then she turned around and saw a very realistic painting on the wall. The boy in the painting looked oddly familiar.
Story of the time my friend made me lie to my parents, part 2. So my mom was not falling for it. She was like, no, I'm gonna come pick you up. So she gets to my friend's house, and like I said, my friend did not want me to leave. And she didn't want to get caught for... So she came up with this elaborate plan that her little siblings were gonna go up to my parents' car and pretend like they're in on the joke. Like I said in my last video, her little siblings were not actors. All 3 of them were under 10 at the time. So before my mom came, she rehearsed with them what they were supposed to say. She wanted them to say, oh my god, that was so funny. You guys fell for the joke. My sister and Mia told us about what they were doing and we thought it was so funny. We didn't know that you were gonna come pick up Mia. But instead, they started to fake cry. And it's so obvious when a child fake cries. They were like, please don't take me away. This whole thing was a prank. It was so obvious, so I was like, I'm just gonna go. So we get in the car, my mom looks at me, and I was like, she made me do that so she wouldn't get caught. So when I was 12, I was dating a 16-year-old, and we dated for like 2 years. So when I was 14, he was 18, just to put it in perspective. I always avoid telling this story just because I'm really scared to, because of the people that are involved, because they really discredit my experience. It was really scary dating him. This is really deep, I'm sorry. He would do things like make me stay on the conversation so that it always said read. I wasn't really allowed to post pictures, and if I did, he would get so mad. I wasn't allowed to wear certain clothes, and when he started to drive, he would show up at my school bus just to see if I was wearing leggings or a belly shirt. And I really wanted to pierce my belly button at that age, but he stopped me from doing that for so long. Until on Valentine's Day, I finally did, and he was gonna take me out to eat. But when he found out about my belly ring, we sat in his room, and he grabbed it and told me that if I didn't take it out, that he wasn't gonna take me out to eat. I had to pretend that my phone got taken away all the time so I wouldn't have to talk to him. And eventually, I started talking to another boy, and he found out and set me up. Let me know if you guys want to hear that story.
So for starters, hopefully this makeup suits you a little bit better than the Tide Pod look did. But I'd also like to say that I've never gotten caught for anything before. At least like not school-wise. But I guess somewhere in this, the coaches started to take attendance mid-run. Sneaky. So I obviously had some absences. However, it was just me and one other girl that was called down to the office. So when I went in to talk to her, the only thing that could come to my mind to explain the absences was that I had an injury and I wasn't included in the workouts, so I just left and the coaches must have forgotten.
and she bought it. However, ripped my friend. They actually had camera footage of her leaving, so it wasn't like there was anything I could do to get her out of it. She got 3 days of detention, I believe, and I just went back the next day like nothing was wrong. But I ended up getting into a lot more trouble that I didn't actually get caught for, and that'll be next. Also, if you like these contacts, they're from TTDI. I got an adorable packaging today, and you can use code MiniCooperList for 10% off. Follow. This is one of the biggest lies I ever told to get myself out of trouble. So back in high school, I used to run on the cross country team, but by no means was I competitive or athletic at all. I was honestly just there for the social aspect of it. All throughout my freshman year of high school, I would literally run to Cold Stone Creamery to get ice cream and bring it back to everyone on my bus. I don't know if that tells you what kind of athlete I was, but yeah. Somehow I still didn't get caught for doing this stuff, and by later in high school, my friends and I decided to pretty much never go. I mean, we would show up to practice, but we would wait until everyone was ahead of us and then turn the opposite direction and sprint to Starbucks. We literally did this almost every single day. And then we would call cute boys from other schools to come meet us over there. We would literally get coffee with them, go shopping, and then once we saw the team getting close again, we would just run back to school and pretend like we did the workout. Until one day, I was called down to the principals. They said it had to do with my cross-country attendance. Follow, share, and I'll tell you what happened next.
Story time about how my boyfriend cheated on me with a 17-year-old girl. So when summer started, I started working at this new job. And I had a really good connection with one of my coworkers. And he was 28 years old. So we started talking, but I would get mad at him a lot because he would ignore my messages asking to hang out. And on top of that, every time that we got done with work, we would all go sit and eat, and he would sit next to this one girl. And by the way, she was 17. And I could see them flirting all the time. Well, finally, once summer ended, she moved away. And then I felt like I had a real chance to start dating him. So we started hanging out a lot and hooking up a lot. After a few months, I started taking our relationship serious. Well, apparently not for him, because there was this girl on his phone that he had been texting a lot. So weirdly enough, after that, I get a DM from the girl that he would always flirt with at work. And she asked me if I was dating him. And I said, yeah. And then she goes, oh, well, he's been texting me a lot. So then I blocked her and went and hooked up with one of his friends that night, like for part
2 on the McDonald's conspiracy. So the thing about their Monopoly game is that it was a 1 in 250 million chance of winning. That is less than the lottery. But one day the FBI was tipped off that the past 3 winners were from the same family. Like, that's actually impossible. And the name that was dropped for who was controlling all of this was Uncle Jerry. Obviously, this is a massive accusation to make. So the FBI was like, okay, let's look into this. And what do you know? All of the recent winners were from the Jacksonville area. So they were like, okay, is it someone at Mickey D's? Makes the boxes, delivers it. Either way, they had to call an immediate meeting with the McDonald's company. They didn't tell them why. They were just like, hey, you guys need to come down here. I would have been scared out of my mind if the FBI didn't tell me why they needed me. But the second the employees got there and sat down, they presented them with the case. And they were shocked. They were like, that is absolutely not possible. It's so rare to win this game, they should not be coming from the same area. And it was causing a major freak out. But luckily, the timing was perfect because they were about to release their next Monopoly game. And this way, they could catch someone in. Okay, so can we please talk about how McDonald's is responsible for one of the biggest conspiracies? Yes, McDonald's. It became a massive FBI investigation and involved one of the biggest Italian mob families in New York. Well, around 1987, there was a little bit of a decline in the fast food industry, and McDonald's was really feeling it, so they were like, oh my gosh, how can we improve our sales? And this is when they decided to partner with Simon Marketing. And they had some amazing business ideas. They helped them come up with the Happy Meal, and they helped them come out with the Monopoly game. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I used to play it a lot as a kid. You would get this little sticker that you could peel off on the back of drinks, boxes. It would offer you a free Big Mac, a drink upgrade, but some of them offered way bigger prizes, like jet skis, cars, all the way up to $1 million. Yeah, I never found one of those. But you could always bring it back and add it to your Monopoly board. And anyone could participate even if you didn't buy anything from them. Like, you could just go in and ask for a chip, or else it would have been considered gambling. McDonald's sales jumped 40%, so they were making bank. But it didn't take long for someone to tip off the FBI. So I walk in on my cousin and my boyfriend doing the dirty on her couch. They quickly get up from the couch and get dressed. Of course, by that time, I'm in hysterics. I'm crying and yelling. My boyfriend instantly got on his knees and begged me for forgiveness. I went up to my cousin and I punched her right in the face. She wasn't expecting that. And I said, well, this is the guy that you've been dating, isn't it? She said yes, and that she was just trying to find the best way to tell me. And so she just thought the best way to tell me was to get me to walk in on her and him doing the dirty. I punched her again. My boyfriend came to her rescue though. Instantly went into hero mode, which made me even angrier, so I punched him too. I stormed out of her house and went back to my house. Well, I told my parents everything. And my dad went over to my uncle's house, my cousin's dad, and he told him everything. She was about to turn 19, so he took away her phone and her car. And I get a phone call from my...
Part 4 to the McDonald's conspiracy. So what exactly made them suspicious of Jerome Jacobson? Well, the people that were getting the chips were all around where he lived. Like his nephew, his butcher, which like, how can you be that stupid? You need to actually be spreading these out. But essentially what he was doing when he was on his way to those McDonald's locations was stopping at the airport bathroom, breaking the seal, taking the piece out and resealing it and leaving the bathroom. So he walked out with the prized piece and he was selling them off. For example, he sold one worth $200,000 or $45,000 to his nephew. Obviously, he realized it was looking a little sketchy, so he decided to get someone else involved, named Jerry Colombo. I know it's a little confusing because they're both Jerry. He belonged in one of the 5 crime families that dominated New York. He wanted to promise his daughter a chip. If you didn't know this, that's why Jerome Jacobson was being called Uncle Jerry. I guess uncle is a term of respect in the mafia. And together they all teamed up to pick other winners, like Gloria Brown, who paid 40 grand for a $1 million chip. And even Jerry Colombo himself got a Dodge Viper. With all this info, the FBI was about to make their arrest.
I was raised by parents who believe religiously and just culturally in rigid gender roles. Dad should work, mom should stay home and raise the kids. I'm the only girl and I have 3 brothers. Because of their expectation I would just get married and stay home and raise kids, they never valued my education. They never valued my educational achievements or emphasized things beyond domestic skill. I'm the second youngest, and by the time I was in high school, my 2 older brothers had gone to the college of their choice, with my parents covering full tuition, books, and off-campus apartment and other living expenses. They eventually did the same for my younger brother, and I was told I wasn't allowed to apply for college. I did so in secret and got accepted with a partial scholarship. I didn't tell them I was moving out until a week before I left. With essentially nothing, the only things I had were things my friends had given to me that their parents bought for them for college. I took engineering and had to work, take on a debt, and struggle. My parents and I have barely spoken in years. I'm married now and expecting our first child, and they asked to meet up. We met at a park, and they said they were sorry if they caused me pain, but would like a relationship now.
My girlfriend is so embarrassing, it's not even funny. So last week we were grocery shopping, and my girlfriend got caught stealing a can of plum tomatoes. Plum fucking tomatoes. So anyway, she got caught, and now she had to go to court today, so I came with her. On the way to court, she's crying at me, this and that, and I feel for her, but she's really scared. So in the courtroom, the judge asked my girlfriend, he goes, excuse me, ma'am, I understand that you stole a can of plum tomatoes. Now, how many plum tomatoes were in that can? So my girlfriend answered the judge. She says, 6, Your Honor. So the judge looks at her and goes, I'm going to sentence you to 1 night in jail for every plum tomato that you stole. My girlfriend turns to me and starts bawling her eyes out. She's like, do something, please help me. So I look at the judge and say, Your Honor, she also stole a can of peas last week, too.
I'm 21 years old and my parents are divorced. My dad cheated on my mom when I was 10 and left us to marry his coworker, Kay. In the weeks following the incident, my pregnant mother ended up miscarrying from all the stress. Kay married my dad and gave birth to my half-sister, S. I remember I always hated going to my dad's place. I remember being miserable whenever I was around them. I never had a bond with S and never considered her to be my sister. Anyways, I visited my dad until I was 15 and then moved to another country with my mom where she met P. P was an amazing guy who made my mother smile again. They ended up getting married and my mom gave birth to my twin brothers. When I moved to a new country, I cut off all contact with my dad. I was supposed to visit them every Christmas, but after my brothers were born, I felt like I finally had a real family and I chose to spend my holidays with my mom, P, and little brothers. Well, last year, S was diagnosed with advanced leukemia. I did feel sorry for her, but I was not in any way affected by the news. She finally passed away on the morning of my 21st birthday. Call me heartless, but for me, it was like some neighborhood kid getting sick. I felt guilty about my feelings because I'm very protective towards my brothers, and the mere thought of any harm coming to them makes me anxious. Now for my 21st.
Part 3 on the McDonald's conspiracy. So what exactly is a conspiracy? It's a secret plan made by a group to do something harmful or unlawful. And it didn't take long for this next Monopoly game to have a new winner. His name was Michael Hoover. The FBI decided to make a fake production company to act like they were doing a big commercial for him winning when they were actually secretly interrogating him. So they were asking him questions. He went into detail on how he found the chip, how he was gonna buy a boat, and name it Ruthless Scandal. And then the FBI, being one step ahead, had already tapped him. So when he left, they heard his phone call, in which he basically laughed and said that he pulled it off, that they actually think he's gonna buy a boat called Ruthless Scandal. But they hear the name Uncle Jerry talked about again. So they had to do a deeper dive into who was working for them. And well, the company they partnered with, Simon Marketing, there was a guy who was head of security named Jerome Jacobson. He oversaw the whole process. Not only did he head all of security, but he also designed it as well. On top of this, he was responsible for taking the chip to the McDonald's location. But if the process was so thorough, how was he pulling it off?
Part 3. So my lying, cheating ex calls me and explains to me why he actually slept with my cousin. He said that he was so lonely and that he didn't know what to do, and that the closest thing to me he could find was my cousin. Right, as if that was any comfort to me. He said I should be grateful that I didn't cheat with someone else. I told him he had totally betrayed my trust and that I could never ever trust him again. And then he confessed that she was pregnant and that his parents wanted them to get married. He said he just wanted to give me a heads up. Then he said that we could still be together but just not tell anyone, so basically he wanted me to be his side piece. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. It was like I didn't know this man. Guess what I did? I recorded the entire conversation. So I went straight to my cousin and I let her listen to it. She was so shocked. She couldn't believe that he would offer to have me as a side chick. Well, I also let my uncle listen to it. He went to my ex's house and beat him up. Honestly, that made me sad, but he deserved it. They now have a baby and he's gained 50 pounds. Trust your instincts, girl, and always record your conversations. Also, how cute are my nails?
Part 2 about how my boyfriend was cheating on me with a 17-year-old girl. So like I said, I hooked up with this friend that night, but I didn't tell him for a couple months because he would always say that we weren't dating, even though we were basically in a relationship. So we were doing really good until around Christmas time. So after he gave me my gifts, which was socks and a candle, he left for Massachusetts. I don't know if I said that right. And a month before this, I had unblocked the girl that he was flirting with. So weirdly enough, after he left, she DM'd me, basically asking if I was still dating him again. And I was like, yeah, why? And she goes, well, I need to tell you something. He actually took my virginity, and he's been sending me a lot of gifts, like a record player and albums, and we've been talking on the phone every night. So when I confronted him about it, he said he felt bad for her because he took her virginity. So after that, I confessed to hooking up with his best friend and called him a child predator. So I blocked him, and then he would still try to get in contact with me.
Story time of how I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me with my cousin. My boyfriend and I had been together for 2.5 years. His family loved me and my family loved him and they expected us to get married. Well, last year when COVID started, we were actually in different countries, so we didn't see each other for 3 months. During those 3 months, we FaceTimed 4 times a day. And we were always texting. He happened to be quarantining in our hometown, so both of our families were in the same place. I was quarantined in a different country. One day my cousin calls me and tells me that she met a really nice guy on a dating website. I was so happy for her because she had had bad luck with guys. Every single week, her and I would catch up on the phone and she would tell me how much she liked this guy, and how amazing their dates were, and how amazing he was in bed, how sweet and considerate he was. I couldn't be happier for her. Well, when I finally get back home, my boyfriend is super distant and cold. So naturally, I called my cousin and complained. She told me to give him space. She said I should just leave him alone. And so like an idiot, I did leave him alone. One day my cousin calls me and tells me to come over for dinner. When I got there, my boyfriend's car was parked in her garage. I thought it was just her nice way of trying to get us to talk. I'd walk in and catch them doing the dirty on the couch, come back for part 2.
If you play an instrument, don't do what he did. Once there was a man known as the best guitar player in the world. He would play on the streets of his city and he made quite a good living from it because everyone knew who he was, until one day something terrifying happened. A rich man came up to him and said he wanted to hire the guitar player to perform at his private party. The guitar player agreed instantly. He arrived at the rich man's mansion, full of people waiting to see him play, and afterwards at night he walked home alone. That's when something he could never explain happened. He heard a sound coming from the bushes behind him, and suddenly a stranger appeared. This stranger asked, "That's a very beautiful guitar, can I play it?" The guitar player agreed and handed it to him, and this stranger played even better than he did. He was shocked and said, "That's amazing." The stranger replied, "Of course, I was a guitar player when I was alive." The guitar player ran and ran, not even looking back to get his guitar back. He thought this would be the end of it, but he was wrong. The next day, he opened up his door to find his guitar lying there, and a ghostly voice coming in from the hallway saying, "Here, I brought your guitar back."